This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
Okay, good morning everyone. Shalom Aleichem, Bruchim Abam. We're continuing in Mishna Berura Daf Hashavua. We're learning Siman Lamed Beis. We're in Siv Yud Zayin on the Mishna Berura Siv Katan, I believe Samaches, Ein Takana. Let's read what the Mechaber said again. If somebody made a mistake and they wrote a Dalet instead of a Reish or a Beis instead of a Chaf, so basically all they did was they made an extra bump in the Reish looking like a Dalet, or an extra bump on the bottom of the Chaf looking like a Beis. You can't scrape off that extra ink because that's Chak Toichais. You're not writing a letter, you're merely scratching away and then the letter appears on its own. Says the Mishna Berura Sivkatan Samaches Ein Takana. There's no remedy. Perush Ayidei Hamechika Ein Takana. There's no remedy by scratching off. Aval Mutter Lohisiv Diyai Velasais Agal. But what you could do is, you could add ink and make it rounder. Let's say like this. You wrote a Dalet instead of a Reish. I guess what you could do now is, you have that little extra protrusion on the top right. You could sort of make the whole right side thicker so it looks like a Reish. You could round it. So now you're writing to fix it instead of scratching off ink. V'chinim ta v'kasav reish b'makam daled v'chaf b'makam beis. Okay, so I think this Mishna Berura is going on the first step, that if ink fell into an ice and the letter is not recognizable, you can't just scrape the ink and the ice will be recognizable. But if you would round the letter, that would be okay. If you wrote, in other words, the first point of the Mishna Berura is if you wrote a Dalet instead of a Reish, you could round off the letter. Now the Mishna Berura is saying if you wrote a Reish instead of a Dalet or a Kavin instead of a Beis, v'havu oisios oven, if the letter was thick, then you can't just scrape away part of it to make it look like a Dalet or a Beis. In takana sheyigarein v'yamidem betunas Dalet or Beis. There's no takana by scraping them and making them have the image of a Dalet or Beis. In other words, let's say you made a Reish or a Chaf, but a very thick one. So you want to scrape away part of the thickness of the letter. So on the bottom there's no protrusion, only on the top. Or that's regarding the Reish turning into a Dalet, or vice versa. The Chaf, if you want to turn to a Beis, you want to scrape off, that's not going to work. You could add ink and make the Reish look like a Dalet, or the Chaf look like a Beis. Let's say you made a mistake, and instead of writing a Zayin, you wrote an Endanon. So what is an Endanon? A very long Zayin. So you say, okay, very easy, I'll scrape away the bottom of the nun for it to look like a Zayin. You can't do that. Ain't takana sheiguroi v'yamida Zayin. There's no takana to scrape away the bottom of the end of nun that it should look like a Zayin. Because that's mamish chak toichais. You're scraping away the bottom of an end of nun that it should look like a Zayin. To have a chak toichais mamish. Elatzarch lemachgoit legamri. You're going to have to erase the letter completely. V'cheinim ta v'kasav hey b'makam daled. Let's say you made a mistake and you wrote a hey instead of a dalet. Ein takana ligrar haregel shal hey v'shadat. So very good. I accidentally made a little line, so I'll just erase it. Very easy fix. No, there's no takana to scrape the letter of the hey and it should remain a dalet. Dedoime l'samach ubeis. That's like a samach or a beis shenafal tipas diyosham, that some ink spilled inside when a skalkal tumunasai al yidei zen, the image got ruined. Zoloi mahani griras atipa. It's not going to help to scrape away the dot. Mishum de'in oisa ma'isa b'gufa ois. You're not doing an act in the body of the letter. V'hachanami, and this with this also kahai gavna. In this case, where you think it's an easy fix, I'll scrape away that piece of the hey. It's not going to work. Elatzarch ligra gamkein ktsas hagag ad sheishar kamayvav. What you're going to have to do is when you scrape away the little leg of the hay, so you say, great, I have a dalid. No, you'll have to scrape away part of the roof of the Daled. Now it's going to look like a Vav. Oy ligrar hayarech, or scrape away some of the leg, ad shelo yishar tzuras Daled olav, so it no longer looks like a Daled. And then fix it that it looks like a Dalet. So it's not going to help to take away the extra. Again, the guy was trying to write a Dalet. He just made a line, so now it looks like a Hey. It's not going to help to remove the leg. You're going to have to remove part of the Etzem Dalet to then rewrite it so that you're doing a Mais and the Guf HaOis. The Achar Kach Yisaknenu, and then you're going to fix it. Klala Demilsa, here's the rule of the matter. Goyrer loy mahani lios ksiva bakach. Scraping doesn't help that it should be considered writing. Umikri chak toichos. It will be called chak toichos. Aval koisev mahani. Writing helps. Shema ave ha'ois midalas reish. You're going to make the letter thicker to turn it from a daled into a reish. Or you're going to make it from a reish to a daled by adding that little bump. Ul'inyan shaloi kesidron. When it comes to the issue that tefillin and mezuzos have to be written in order, then it's just the opposite. Then when you have to add ink and do a maisa b'guf ha'ois, then it's going to ruin everything you wrote afterwards because it's not kesidron. But in situations where all you need to do is scrape, then goyrer kosher, scraping is not an issue of shaloi kesidron. Let's say, for example, kugoin bedibuk oisel oisel ukil kaman. Let's say you have two letters that are touching, but each letter still retains the tzuras ha'ois. The only thing is it's not a touch, so you're going to scrape it. You're allowed to scrape it, but what do you mean the letters afterwards were written before? No, this is not considered kesiva shaloi kesidron. This is not considered an act in the body of the letter. V'koisev, but v'koisev possible, writing passes. That which we allow you to add ink and to put the letter back in its correct image, that's provided you did not write a letter afterwards, and there's no issue of shaloi kesidron. Hainu kishaloi katsav ha'oisiyah she'acharza. That is, if you didn't write the letters afterwards. By the way, the Dirshu points out that there were instances that you are allowed to add ink. For example, let's say the leg of the hay, you made it too short. You could add ink, and the reason is because it has the tsuras ha'ois. So you're just adding it to get the halachic shiur. So when the ois is an ois, and the addition or the gerera, it's not midin kesiva. It's midin fulfilling a specific requirement. That's not an issue of shaloi kesidron. Last Mishna Berura, Sivkat and Samach Tes. You can't just erase the bump of the dalid. Limchoy katag va'afilu machakach yimshach gam ken gagoy v'sachtisoy shel hakaf loy mahani debelav hachi tzurasa aleha. So what is this talking about? Let's say you wrote a bays instead of a kaf. So you want to scrape off that little bump. It's not going to help even if, let's say, you elongate the roof or the bottom of the kaf. So you say, I didn't add to the actual letter. Yeah, but you didn't change the letter, and the letter had the tsura as soon as you scraped off the bump. It's not going to help. Doing something to the letter is only if somehow the letter lost its tsura, and then by you adding ink, you fix that up. Okay, tomorrow, Bez Hashem, we'll begin Sif Yurches. Have a wonderful day. Bracha v'atzlacha. Kol tov.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.